the toll booth of the Strait of Hormuz was going to be rebranded to something else that fits into the Article 26, the legal framework that allows Iran to charge a toll booth.
Right.
So that was going to happen. That was good news. And then we had, I'm trying to find what it's called. I keep forgetting. Anyway, unclose Article 26. Unclose. So that was for the fee for the Strait of Hormuz. I'm like, great. We have a solution for that. Because that was something that Iran, as we've discussed last time, would not budge from this. Initial sources on the American side, they're saying there won't be any fee, any toll. But it seems there is going to be something. They're just not going to call it a toll. They can call it a pilotage fee or navigation aids or environmental monitoring, whatever they want to call it. They'll be charging money for ships going through. So that's sorted. Then we had the biggest one is the unfreezing of assets. I didn't know how that will be solved. I was confident it will be solved, but I just did not know how. On the American side, as we've discussed, they're saying there won't be anything unfrozen until we get concessions from Iran. On the Iranian side, they're like, we're not going to concede anything until we get our money. We don't trust you guys. Well, thanks to Qatar, we got reports that the money was, what's going to happen is most likely, and this is not based on the reports is they found a solution. That what I've been informed is that most likely it'll be a loan that will be given to Iran that will be collateralized by the frozen assets. Unconfirmed, this is more speculation from people that were not directly there. So we have a solution for this. So Iran gets their money. That's a pretty massive win for Iran. Then we have the third issue that I was preparing to discuss with you, and that was going to be the title of the interview, is the escalation in Lebanon. So we had Operation, I don't know what they called it now, Operation Arrows of Fire. Schools closed in northern Israel starting tomorrow. Beirut started evacuating tonight. And the IDF Home Front Command is telling its own civilians to prepare for what's coming. And then we had reports from channel 11, 12, 13, 14, all these Israeli channels saying there's going to be an escalation in Lebanon. It's going to go into a new phase. Netanyahu is on call with U.S. officials to get the green light. And all that happened as he was being pressured by Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and others in his administration to destroy Lebanon, to escalate in Lebanon. Well, Smotrich advocated, that's the definition of Nazism. He was advocating for leveling 10 buildings for every drone Hezbollah fires. Ben-Gvir is like, invade all the way up to Beirut. That's Ben-Gvir, what he said in a tweet today. And then as I'm preparing to go live with you, they had the developments that are pretty concerning when it comes to Iran. There were explosions reported in, let me see exactly where.
Karg?
Bandar Abbas. Karg, there were fires there, no explosions. There's satellite images showing potential fires, unconfirmed, and we're not saying there's strikes, and we don't know if there's actually fires, but there's been multiple reports of fires with satellite imagery. But this satellite imagery is hard to dissect. Then there's been reports of explosions in Bandar Abbas and around that area. Air defenses were activated, and then there's reports that the IRGC shot down multiple American drones, including a Reaper drone, at least one. And then we got information from Iranian sources that the U.S. shot at two IRGC Navy speedboats, killing 4 IRGC members on board. And that's where we're at right now. We don't know what exactly that clash between the US and Iran was. It's quiet as of the last few minutes, unless something just happened or nothing. It's been quiet in the last half an hour to an hour, but that happened in the last couple of hours. And that's where we're at. So very volatile, a lot of moving pieces. Right. And then Barak David, last 2 quick updates. Barak David just posted now why it matters. This comment seems to signal a softening. And okay, so Trump posted, that's important. Trump posted that the uranium now will either be immediately turned over for the US to be brought home or destroyed, or preferably in conjunction, coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran, destroyed in a place or at another acceptable location with the Atomic Energy Commission. So essentially, Trump conceded on Iran sending the enriched uranium somewhere else. And then Barak David saying this is the US softening their position regarding the enriched uranium stockpiles, which is a positive development when it comes to a deal. So there's a lot there, Larry, some of it good, some of it bad. My position is that the war is still over, and I think a deal is imminent. But obviously, a lot of indicators pointing in a completely different direction. What do you make of all this?
There will be no deal. Iran is firm on its position. Lifting of the sanctions, unfreezing of the assets. Well, Now, part of the problem with the unfreezing the assets is it depends. I'm not sure what percentage of those were frozen because of the actions of a U.S. president through executive order, and what percentage were frozen through actions of the U.S. Congress. Sanctions passed by U.S. Congress cannot be circumvented by the president. So that would be an issue for negotiation. And on that issue, Iran might be willing to show some flexibility. But they're showing no flexibility with respect to Lebanon and the ending of the fighting in Lebanon and the fighting against the Palestinians. Instead, Israel's ramping up. Israel's basically telling Trump, "Go fuck yourself. We're gonna do whatever we want." And what are you going to do about it? Well, what Trump could do about it is pull the plug on him completely. But Trump is, as I said yesterday with you, got 250 million reasons why he's going to be succumbing to what the Zionists want. So, yeah, these are, there are lots of issues that are out there on the table. You're correct that these could, in a normal, rational universe, there could be a negotiated settlement. But we're not living in a normal, rational universe. We're living in Zion land, and where the Zionists reign supreme. They control Trump, pure and simple. They control the American Congress. Anybody had doubts about that? Just look at what happened to Thomas Massey, a Republican congressman who had been overwhelmingly popular in his district, and the Zionist money came in, targeted him, took him out. If the United States did that in a foreign country, we'd be calling that a coup. So this is the shooting that's now taking place with downing the drones. Those drones they're not out doing recreational flying. They're out doing targeting, collection, information that's going to be put into packages so that the United States can attack Iran again. And Iran's just saying, no, we're not going to mess around. They shut them down. Now, if they really did shoot at those Iranian gunboats, then I would anticipate Iran's going to start firing anti-ship missiles at the ships that are 200 miles offshore, because now they can, with the Chinese missiles, they can reach them.
Just got a report: U.S. Air Force Boeing KC-46A Pegasus air refueling tanker departed Tel Aviv, heading towards the Persian Gulf at 24,500 feet. The tanker is positioning to potentially refuel strike aircraft.
Mm-hmm. So I thought we'd hold off till Friday. Looks like you're cooking off now.
I hope it's limited. A bit of similar to what we saw after Operation Freedom, just limited back and forth.
I love it, limited. As I said, the pregnancy. I hope it's limited, dude. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There's no limited in this. That's like with war. You're full on or you're not on. The little bitty pinpricks here are just that's how a whole fire starts.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the worry is that one thing, the escalation trap, one thing leads to another and it escalates. But the Operation Freedom de-escalated relatively quickly, the clashes they had there. So that's what I'm hoping happens. Obviously, everyone's hoping that happens, except the guys in Israel. Where do we start? Let's go into before we talk into Lebanon and the strikes that are happening right now, because that's developing as we speak. There is a positive development. Trump did post that he's happy the enriched uranium goes out of the country. Al Jazeera reported, so I'm not the only one that says this. Al Jazeera reported as well that Qatar has managed to find a breakthrough when it comes to the unfreezing of assets. And the last sticking point, the giving up the unfreezing of assets, the enriched uranium. Trump posted about unfreezing of assets
and sanctions.
This Hormuz and the sanctions. There's been reports that the U.S. is willing to lift the sanctions on the oil, Iranians' ability to sell the oil, which they've done before. So I think that's digestible. They've done it before. The Hormuz Straits, Iran's already talking about charging what it's called. They're like, we're not going to charge a toll. We're going to charge. I can't remember the statement. I can get you the exact statement. They said it earlier today. So Iran's already started rebranding it.
How about resort fee?
result fee. They called it, I think, an environmental fee. I think that's what they called it.
There you go. Yeah. Just like the casinos in Vegas, they now charge a resort fee, also known as a toll.
There we go. It is natural. So that's the foreign ministry today. It is natural that in this process, the services provided navigation services, in addition to the necessary measures to protect the environment of the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and the Sea of Oman, these require the collection of fees. Therefore, they should not be referred as tolls. Iran and Oman are responsibly working on this path and hope to reach a final agreement as soon as possible. So they've today is the first time they've changed it away from calling it tolls. So if we put these together, they are good indicators. Iran not calling it tolls. Trump just agreed not to send the enriched uranium to the US. And Qatar saying, according to Al Jazeera, which is owned by Qatar, saying that we have a solution for the unfreezing of assets. There is reasons to be hopeful.
Yeah, let's see what Iranian sources report on enriched uranium. If they corroborate an Al Jazeera report, then okay, fine. I'd say okay, we can trust that. But Western leaks that are designed to shape a narrative, I always withhold judgment.
Yeah, so there hasn't been any Iranian reporting on the enriched uranium that said they don't want to send it anywhere. I think I saw a report today about sending it to China.
And they've talked about sending it to Russia. I've heard possibly Pakistan.
There you go. So there are options, and if Trump is allowing it to go somewhere else, there's room to be. According to sources cited by Al Arabiya, so that's Saudi, Iran is seeking guarantees from China. Iran is seeking guarantees from China before proceeding with a deal to end the war with the US, and is demanding some of its highly enriched uranium to be transferred to China rather than the US. So that's according to Al Arabiya. And now we have Trump saying, oh yeah, it can go somewhere else. So that's good. That's positive there. Obviously putting the strikes, the explosions that are happening right now, that just happened aside, which we'll talk about in a second. I'll update you. But if Al Arabiya is saying Iran is happy, you'd agree Iran would send it to China, yeah?
I really could send it to China. I've also heard from someone connected with the Pakistani side that Pakistan has offered to take it, and Iran's entertaining that. But again, the whole uranium thing, that's just again, that's a red herring. That's not what this is all about. If this is what it was all about, they would have settled this before the war started. This is about destroying the Islamic regime. And I don't see the United States or Israel backing off of that one bit. They're going to continue to insist upon that as an objective.
But Israel, yeah, but the US, they know they can't, Larry. Like you've talked about the depletion of the munitions for so long. They can't.
Oh, right.
They might want to.
No, I agree with you. They can't, but that doesn't mean they're going to give up on their fantasy.
Oh, shit. A second KC-46 just took off from Tel Aviv.
Yeah. So you figure they're capable of refueling 3 or 4 F-35s or F-16s or F-18s, whatever's in the area. So the air ops are now stepping up. If those tankers are flying out of Israel away from the region, that'd be a good sign that, okay, U.S. is preparing to de-escalate. But it looks like it's heating up now.
Yeah, it did heat up on Friday. Remember, we talked about how there were fighter jets and refueling tankers scrambled, but then they did not end up striking, which seemed either like a pressure tactic to have the Iranians concede while the Qataris were there, or to have Iran activate their air defense systems to try to locate them, preparing for future strikes. Maybe now they're trying to pressure Iran again, playing that game as they're negotiating. Again, or it's a preparation for something much bigger. We'll see. We're seeing it unfold live. Lebanon is a scary one. That was pretty. Went all out today, but they haven't started striking hard. They struck a bit hard this morning, but they haven't started striking Beirut. So, would you agree that in the next 24 hours, if we see massive, my assumption here is that they're doing the same thing as the last ceasefire, Larry. Mm-hmm. The ceasefire was imminent. Israel tried to cause as much damage as possible before having to abide to it or partially abide to it. Could this be again the same thing here? If they feel a deal could happen, they're trying to attack as much as possible before Trump forces them to stop?
Except we already have a ceasefire in place, supposedly.
We do.
Yeah. What's going on right now isn't supposed to be happening. So what Israel has shown, that ceasefire, they wipe their ass with it. They don't care. ceasefire, schmeeshfire, it gives them, they're going to go ahead and blow the hell out of Lebanon. And it's frustration because they can't defeat Hezbollah on the ground. And Hezbollah continues to inflict significant casualties on Israeli defense forces that are on the ground. This is the only thing Israel's good at, bombing from the air. That's what cowards do. They don't have to go to hand, face to face. They can just drop it from 20,000, 30,000 feet and fly home. They don't see the blood. They don't see the mayhem.
Yeah.
So that's when they blow up buildings. But the problem, so they destroy the buildings above ground. Hamas learned long ago. Go below the earth. They do, and once they're below the earth, they're in there like a tick on a dog's butt. Israel can't get them out.
And it's important to remember, Iran closed their airspace from the 22nd till the 25th. So Iranian airspace right now is closed. It's empty.
Right.
Just remember
it's now the 26th in Iran.
Yeah, 26 just started, so it's still clear. I'm just looking at it. It's just so the clearance ended today, but the airspace is still completely clear. So they closed their western airspace. Yes, but I'm looking at a map right now. I can show it to you, Mike. You can show it on screen. All right, Tasnim just put out a report here, Larry. Tasnim News says that an informed source has confirmed that progress has been made during the latest round of talks, with steps forward achieved. Iran is insisting that a portion of its frozen assets must be released as part of the process, continuing to cite a lack of trust in the U.S. and a desire to secure concrete, guaranteed outcomes. So that just came out from Tasnim. Yeah. Gives you a bit of hope if it comes from Tasnim?
No. When the deal is signed, both sides said we've agreed to all points, then I'll allow myself to entertain some hope. But right now, there are too many assassins lying in the bushes ready to sabotage the process, and Israel being the culprit number one.
Is it fair to say that even a deal is signed, this is just a one-pager MOU? Like, this doesn't mean much anyway. We're celebrating something very trivial.
Remember, there was this thing called the JCPOA. That was that was a signed agreement. And all Trump did is said, no, we don't recognize it. We tear it up and walked away. And, the narrative in the West was, oh, this was a terrible agreement. Now, I am no fan of Barack Obama. But if you go back and read that agreement, it was rock solid. If the objective of that agreement was to ensure that Iran did not develop a nuclear weapon. And instead of running with that victory, the neocons and the Zionists made sure they sabotaged it, because they knew if that agreement was allowed to stand, then they couldn't get rid of Iran. They want to get rid of Iran. Like I said, this is not about preventing Iran from getting a nuke. That is the excuse. This is about eliminating the Islamic Republic. You can't have a government that's based upon genuine religious belief, because Israel is a false example of that. They claim to be a Jewish state, and they completely violate the tenets and principles of Judaism.
There's something that the Financial Times put out today, which is something we've discussed a lot. And by the way, the JCPOA point is really interesting. I said today in one of the interviews, I'm like, we're getting excited about this one-page MOU when an agreement that took a year and a half to finalize, that had hundreds of pages, was ripped up in an instant. And now we're thinking this one-page MOU is going to mean much. So we can celebrate this one-page MOU, but long-term, not too many reasons to celebrate. The report from the Financial Times says Trump's military options to break the stalemate with Iran are risky, limited, and may ultimately benefit Iran, which has weathered 40 days of bombing without retreating and only hardened its position since, according to the Financial Times, cited by from airstrikes to naval operations, there is no easy way to force Iran back down, and new attacks risk dragging Washington into a costly quagmire. Iran has learned from American fighting methods, is rebuilding its damaged air defenses, and may have received weapons from China and Russia. It can strike U.S. forces with suicide drones in any new round of conflict. So And also, Iran shot down a drone this morning as well, and they said that was using some new air defense system they haven't used before,
Right.
and they shot down the drone as a warning sign. And now we have the reports that came in an hour ago that we were just talking about of multiple drones shut down. So I think it's important to take one factor into consideration, that Iran right now is very different to the Iran before.
Yeah, yeah, they've been buttressed, strengthened, you know. So they've really had a boost from China, from Russia, and you know they're prepared for the next round. I don't think the West is, because you know the West, it's not like you go out and build, let's build some more PAC-3 missiles. Hey, let's boost that production of Tomahawks. Sorry, boss, with those rare earth minerals we need out of China, we don't have those.
Yeah. All right, so I've got an update from CENTCOM here. Okay, so they've confirmed the strikes. CENTCOM spokesperson Captain Tim Hawkins told Fox News that U.S. forces carried out a self-defense strikes in southern Iran, targeting missile launch sites and Iranian boats allegedly attempting to place mines. Hawkins said the strikes were conducted to protect American troops, and the CENTCOM continues to defend our forces while using restraint during the ongoing ceasefire. What do you make of that statement? They said they're using restraint.
Nonsense. You know, the U.S. forces have no right to be there, number one. So it's like you break into somebody's house, they start shooting at you, and then you say, oh, we had to shoot back because they were putting our lives at risk. You shouldn't enter their damn house in the first place. You know, we used to believe in this thing called international law. Instead, you know, the United States now reserves the right. We can break whatever law we want. If we decide you're an enemy, we can do whatever we want to you. We declare you a monster, we can kill you. Do we have to have any legal justification? Absolutely not.
There's another report here I want to get your thoughts on. Ynet reported that Israel may be left with 3 active fronts and tied hands. They said that that's a big thing. They said Trump lifting the naval blockade, he will make a joke of himself. And they called it a defeat and humiliation. So Israeli media is just taking a shit at Trump. I don't think that will, yield much results. Or one of my guesses, like Mario, they're trying to coax him back into the war. And then it says, with America's failure. Those cigars are kicking in, Larry.
No, I swallowed wrong.
Okay. With America's failure, Israel now faces its worst strategic situation in history. 3 active fronts, Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and no room to maneuver. If Trump off-ramps, what happens to Israel? What happens to the 3-front war? Would they have to start winding down those wars as well?
Yes. All the United States has to do, excuse me, is pull the plug. They pull the plug on Israel. No more military aid, no more resupply of weapons. Israel's going to have to come to realization, okay, we got limited resources. We can't keep this up. We have to pull back. They've already, I think, they've suffered more casualties, more losses on the ground in Lebanon this go round compared to 2006. But again, we don't know that for sure, simply because the Israelis are doing everything they can to cover up the losses and sort of downplay it. Because I guarantee you, if the knowledge about those losses comes out, then the political reaction in Israel is going to be very severe.
Yeah. By the way, is that blackjack there? Or the lady?
No, they're both inside.
Okay. By the way, if you have a meal, you can take a bite. Don't hesitate. You can always
No, that's all right. I content myself with a cigar.
You can always have a meal on my show. Whenever you're hungry, you can always have a meal. What else do we have for you, Larry, to get your thoughts on? We have Channel 12. Iran's currently only willing to commit to not developing nuclear weapons, while the US is proposing several options. Disagreements remain. So Israeli media is a lot less optimistic. Iranian media is getting more optimistic than Israeli media. That's the first time that happens, because the Iranians are usually the ones the most hesitant. And I know this is the one you listen to the most. I'll always pay attention to that one the most. That's a big one, Larry. We haven't spoken about this. What do you? We have briefly yesterday. Trump doubled down on the Abraham's Accords. It pretty quickly, Saudi said, no, our position is unchanged. And Saudi made its position on Israel normalization clear. The same position as before. There needs to be an irreversible pathway to Palestinian statehood first before anything else. We review a normalization. And then the Iranians take it a step further. The foreign ministry, within an hour of Trump's post, they say, the Islamic Republic of Iran does not recognize Israel in inverted commas and never will. It is an illegal and occupying entity. Therefore, it is impossible to engage in diplomatic relations with their genocidal regime, which is the greatest source of instability and crimes against humanity in the region. It would be better for Iran. This is crazy. Listen to this. It would be better for Iran, which is a civilization that existed for thousands of years, to be martyred in its entirety rather than to engage in diplomatic relations or any other relations with the killer of Muslims. Shit. They literally said, we'd rather just die till the last man than normalize relations with Israel.
Yeah, there are these things called principles. Look, we've got the actual numbers. If Hezbollah or Hamas or name your Islamic group was killing tens of thousands of Israelis a year, we know the numbers, but that's not the fact. That's not the case. The 1,155, I believe, is the final number that were killed on October 7th. And of those, maybe as many as 40% were killed by the Israelis through their airstrikes on people fleeing the music festival. So this, in terms of who's killing who, the numbers pan out that it's the Israelis are killing far more Palestinians and Muslims and Christians than vice versa.
I got, while you're speaking, another refueling tanker just took off from Tel Aviv.
That's the third, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think it'll be limited, Larry. I still think the war is over. I stand my ground. I still want to be optimistic on this. CENTCOM in their statement just now, they did say they're trying to be restrained during the ceasefire. So it's kind of more the rhetoric of one that doesn't want to escalate.
Yeah. We're being restrained during the ceasefire. We're only blowing up small boats. I'm sure that's
they shot at air defenses as well. Missile silos as well. So not only small boats. So just to be clear.
Oh, okay. So they're going back after those missile silos that the Iranians have repaired.
Yeah, exactly. So they said U.S. forces conducted strikes on missile launch sites, and boats.
And explain that one to me. How do you repair missile silos that have been obliterated?
You're the expert, Larry. You could explain it to me. But as it's a joke. It's just the entries. There were the rubble. They removed it. Nothing was obliterated. And how did on Friday as well? The Air Force that was destroyed scrambled the fighter jet. Two fighter jets, Iranian fighter jets, and CENTCOM already shot today, shot at boats as part of the Navy that totally sank. So in the last 2 days, we had Iran scramble fighter jets, CENTCOM shoot at boats, and at missile silos, all meant to be destroyed.
Well, you mean Trump may have made some mistakes? Oh, my goodness. How does that happen? Yeah, look, this, there's always a propaganda war on either side. Each side will put out their propaganda to make themselves look the best and the other the worst. But there's no denying that despite obliterating some of Iran's capabilities, there are still aircraft flying despite saying you defeated them all. And part of the reason for that is at the very start of the war, Iran flew a lot of its planes into Pakistan. They were sheltered and protected in Pakistan. And a number are in underground shelters that, they prepared for this for years. They're not going to leave them out in some above ground shelters because they know they're vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's the third refueling tanker taking off. The Abraham Accords. Yeah. So on that question, and before you can explain your thoughts on Iran's response, but why is Trump mentioning them? Is that him trying to give Netanyahu is something political to use back home.
Yeah,
the way I saw it is, yeah.
That's
to try to
exactly
get
it.
the war in Lebanon.
Throw Bibi a bone, but it's not even Bibi, because like I said, I mentioned before, take Bibi out of the equation. The Israeli position vis-a-vis Palestinians and Lebanese have not changed, nor is it going to change as long as you have the Likudniks and their allies in government. They are firmly, unalterably, they believe from the river to the sea applies to them, not the Palestinians.
So I want to repeat what Smotrich and Ben-Gvir said today, because that one is, it's really upsetting. I'll read out the exact statements. Let me see where it is. It's crazy that Netanyahu is the one that's seen as the moderate here.
Yeah.
Why?
That tells you how crazy things are. When Bibi's the moderate, oh my God.
Yeah. Smotrich it's not a public statement for him to get political points. It was during the security cabinet meeting, and Smotrich was advocating to level 10 buildings in Dahi and Beirut for every drone launched from Lebanon. And then Netanyahu pushed back saying, what do you mean? You're asking Israel should also destroy 10 buildings in Gaza or the West Bank or even Ramallah every time a drone is launched, including a criminal group inside Israel launching a drone. So even Netanyahu is telling him, how is that even a logical thing to do? But it is concerning if you take that along with Ben-Gvir's statement that he should invade Beirut. Ben-Gvir talks a lot of shit, but it's hard to dismiss them when 20 to 30% of Israelis have a favorable view of Ben-Gvir.
Yeah,
you can't dismiss these statements anymore, Larry.
No, these are radical. These are extremist statements, and they act on those statements. So they've already acted on them. Allowed rapes of prisoners because Ben-Gvir said it's okay. There's we talked before about how the extreme religious views end up really poisoning the well.
Yeah. And even if some people start to worry that if Netanyahu is replaced, similar to Ali Khamenei, everyone's like, if you replace, don't kill Ali Khamenei because you might have someone that's more radical or more aggressive or anti-US, less willing to have a fatwa against nuclear weapons, maybe more willing to build nuclear weapons. So all these things, the same thing might apply to Netanyahu. You get rid of Netanyahu, you might get someone even worse. That's the problem there.
Yeah, so let's define, we use the terms radical this, radical that. So let's define exactly what we mean when we're saying radical. So from the standpoint of the Ben-Gvir and the Smotrich, they do not accept Palestinians as human beings. They are subhuman. Untermensch, as the Germans used to call it. They are Amalek. They are people that God, according to their belief and their particular version of what they call a holy scripture, that must be destroyed. Not just the men, the women, the children, the animals, just all destroyed. Now, that's not rhetoric. That's a belief. So I chalk that up to that's extreme, ultimate extremism. You don't see yet on the Iranian side the same kind of kill every Jew. You don't hear that rhetoric. You don't hear that call. And in fact, in Iran during the course of the war, we did see when they were hit, they didn't retaliate by blowing up schools with children in it. They still, I think, within the tenets of Islam, believe killing non-combatants is a sin. So they focused upon economic targets, military targets, but shied away from going after civilian targets, by and large. Otherwise, if they had, we'd be hearing about it. We'd see, Israel wouldn't be keeping that quiet. I mean, that'd be a perfect propaganda piece. See, these murderers are killing our children.